r/AskReddit. What is your accidentally caught your spouse cheating horror story? I opened my sister's door to ask for a hair tie and she was fucking my BF. This was in high school but still. I spit on them, yelled why, and went downstairs to leave. My dad is in the living room on the computer and asks what's wrong. I say go upstairs and see for yourself iron outside, and heard the yelling right away. My dad chased him out of the neighborhood naked. She got shipped to my mom's house shortly after that and got pregnant at 17 years old. Edit. Whoa. Didn't expect anyone to actually see that. This was just the start with her. To answer some questions, I asked why later, and he said he did it because she would have sex and I wouldn't. I was still a virgin and she was sexually active at 12. No, I never spoke to him again. He's actually a meth head now. She slept with another one of my boyfriends a year later. Another one, I found them kissing on our front porch one day after grade 12. Fast forward to me being fresh out of high school, full-time job that I loved. She knocked up with number 2 and my dad made me quit my job and move in with her to watch my 1-year-old niece so she could finish high school. She does, then has THR baby and is too lazy to raise either, so I do for a year. I finally say enough. I didn't want to leave my niece and nephew, but I was a kid and wanting my own life and not to live in her apartment with her new boyfriend and 2 kids. I moved back home and start new. My nephew's father ends up getting custody. She didn't try to fight and didn't show up to 3 different court dates to try and win him back at all. So she takes my niece and splits up north to hide in our hometown. By now my niece is 3 and from up until now, she turns 18 on the 9th. She has lived in 4 different provinces and Florida twice. My sister has ran all over the country, going through probably around 100 men. She's been engaged more than I can count. Back to me. When I moved back home, got my life back together, and my own place about a year later, who comes knocking at the door? My seasoned niece. Can we stay for a bit? Of course, you're my sister. She fucks my roommate, doesn't take care of my niece. She's getting high and whatnot. My niece gets smoked in the head by one of the guys she's hanging around with a golf club. I take her for stitches. Tell her to go back home and stay there. She does, thankfully. She cleans herself up a bit and goes to college. Fast forward to me getting married and having my own 2 kids. She comes to visit with her fiance and my niece. She was now 6 and I catch C's trying to blow my husband. Goodbye for another 2 years and eventually goodbye to the husband too. That's a whole other issue. The jerk. Fast forward again, and I'm with my first kiss from 13. My soulmate, Bath, and unbeknownst to me, he has a drinking problem. She takes advantage of that. She has admitted in the past, when I've asked why she keeps doing this to me, that she can't stand that I've always been successful and happy, so she tries to ruin it or take it away and starts sexting my boyfriend. They texted for a few days and feels bad. I read them, and that was that. He did cheat with other women, but was also blackout drunk for the better part of 2 years. He quit, has been sober since December 12, 2014. Different man. Amazing man and father. My sister on the other hand. I finally had enough, and at a little sister's wedding, right at the end, I told her to never call me, message me or try to reach me. Forget I'm her sister, because she's never treated me as such. We haven't spoken since then. That was 2013. She's still the same. My niece gets no attention. My mom has basically raised her when she's been close to them to take care of her. She comes to our house out at 2. My sister is too busy worrying about this man or the next, too busy getting stoned. I'm not against smoking a joint, and too busy with her own life. She shouldn't never have been a mother. We were high school sweethearts and had been together about 7 years. We went to college together, worked together, basically spent 20 hours a day together. I left for the military and never got a single letter from her or heard anything about her from my mom, the only person who did write me. Somewhere in the first 2 weeks out of 13, I came to the conclusion that she died and people were sparing me the stress while I was in boot camp. I'm floored when I see her at graduation. She seemed cold and distant, but she'd also recently gotten over a substance issue, or so I thought. I stayed with her for 10 days before leaving for training instead of staying with my mom, and I hardly see her. She says she is working 2 jobs and going to school. I try to be understanding and supportive, but she also didn't come home one night. We part on weird terms, but she assures me she's just sad to see me go. I'm a couple weeks into training, and my family and girlfriend drive to see me. We have a really good 3-day visit, and when they are dropping me off, I get a phone call from a good friend I'd known for years. He tells me how sorry he is. She had told him that I broke up with her when I left, so I could have guilt-free casual sex, which was what I always wanted. He told me her sister found out we were still together from a text she had seen. He was so apologetic, and I thought he was a piece of shit before, but that was the behavior of a stand-up guy. She denied. This was a real shitty move on my part, but I pulled the texts from our shared account, back when you could do that, but I justified it, because her new boyfriend had already offered to send them to me. With texts in hand, she still denied it. We both moved on, and she's married to him now. Throwaway account, only because I find this story a bit too weird even for me. One time my husband thought he had caught me cheating on him. I'm a full-time artist and do pretty well for myself. Most of my paintings are on the weird and surreal side, so when I'm experiencing a creative block I do some pretty weird shit. My husband and I are childhood sweethearts, so he's seen it all. I was nearing the end of my deadline for a gallery series, and I was stressed. My husband was nervous leaving me alone for a week, but he had a business conference that he couldn't miss. Around day 2 I ran to the supermarket to buy a pack of condoms and cheap Barbies. I scalped and maimed the Barbies and stuffed as much of it in the condom as possible. The result was interesting. I'll probably paint it someday in the future, and somehow motivated me enough to finish the remaining paintings in the series. I throw the few condoms I'd used away and boxed the remaining with my art supplies. Didn't bother to think any further on it. Cut to 5 days later. Husband comes home. I'm making dinner while he showers. He turns the water on, promptly turns it off, comes downstairs looking white as a ghost and walks out of the house without a word. I'm freaked out and go after him, but he's already gone with the car. I'm blowing up his phone, but he won't answer me. Trying not to freak out too much, I decide that maybe I'm overreacting and just let it go for a few hours. Still no response. I reach out to some family and they haven't heard from him either. I spend a sleepless night debating what to do next. Early morning my husband comes home looking like shit and reeking of alcohol. He goes off at me, screaming and cursing. I've never seen him like this. I'm trying to calm him down, to figure out WTF is happening, but he won't let me talk. He's going on until he finally uses the word cheating. And it clicks. He found the condoms. I use the typical, it's not what it looks like response, so he decides to calm down and humor me. Go to my studio and pull out the sketches I'd done of the Barbies and the condoms to show to him. He's giving me a strong asterisk WTF is wrong with YOU asterisk look, but is calming down. Still not really believing me. So I ask him if the condoms even had fluid in them. Calming down even more. I grab the poor maimed Barbies, and he breaks out in laughter before he begins to tear up. I love this man to pieces, and it broke my heart that he had been so torn up thinking I'd slept with another man. This whole thing happened 2 years ago. Now we just laugh at the whole thing. It took a little while for him to get back to normal. I'm sure he still thought something might be up, but he eventually just settled with the fact that he married someone who's weird AF. We are still going strong. Not me, but my neighbor who is also my best friend. He was having his 30th birthday party and a bunch of people were over at his condo. He was intoxicated. A solid 7/10 intoxicated and spilled his beer on his shirt, so he decided to change shirts. He asked me to come with him because he wanted to ask me something in private, so I went with him upstairs. He opened his bedroom door and we saw his boss going to town on his fiancée. I will never forget the look on his face. His fiancée's face and his boss's face. The silence was broken up by "This isn't what it looks like" routine. My friend responded with, "If this isn't what it looks like, why was his dick so far inside you?" I stood there in amazement and was in a state of shock. His boss got dressed and I walked him out of the party. The pose even grabbed a roadie before he left. My friend came downstairs and immediately chugged a beer and announced my now ex-fiancée was caught having sex with my boss, and I walked in on them with her legs behind her head. I didn't know she could do that. Usually she lays there like a starfish. Let's get really fucked up. He was kind of a mess for a while after that. Luckily, it was his condo. He owned and paid for both cars. His fiancée just quit her job to be a housewife. Instant karma. Postscript. It took him a year to date again. I set him up with a coworker of mine. They are great together. The post boss. Well, he got what he deserved in the end. He was caught sleeping with the wife of the owner of the company he worked for. Fired, and my buddy was promoted. His fiancée, well, she moved in with her parents again and had to give up her lavish lifestyle. Last time I saw her, she tried to flirt with me and be playful. I shut that down and told her never to speak to me again. Girlfriends come and go, but best friends only come by every once in a while. Edit. My friend never asked me the question he wanted to ask. Probably best he doesn't. On the subject of grabbing the roadie, I want to like that move so badly, but I just can't. Thanks for the comments and the laughs. Hopefully this story helps you in the future or present. Not sure how, but I hope it does. Mine's weird. It's not quite cheating, but it's weird. So apps are a thing in the gay community. A big thing. Bars are disappearing. So just meeting someone out and about can be a little difficult for a lot of us. I've had apps for bears, burly hairy dudes with beards, for years now. Chat with a lot of men. Some have become friends. Very few have become any more than that. I finally met a guy a few years ago, and it was fine for a while. Got rid of most of the dating profiles. Switched all statuses to taken on the one app I use to connect with friends across the country and overseas. Saw him on the app and that was fine. I didn't care. He wasn't looking for sex or dicking around. Neither was I, so it didn't matter. Life went on. A week or so later, he saw me on the app and got wildly pissy about it. We had words. I explained why I didn't want to get rid of it and assured him he could ask for my phone and look through my messages whenever he wanted. Thought we were good. Oh no. Shortly thereafter, someone in town for work struck up a conversation. Really good looking, but I'm taken. That's cool. He just wants to be friends and chat. Fantastic. Having a friend who just wants to be friends is excellent. We talk for months about all kinds of things and it never gets sexual. Here and there, a random, faceless profile will ask for sex. Those folks get told to fuck off because I'm not looking for that. Suddenly, however, new penpal telling me he's been chatting with a guy looking for sex who sounds a lot like the guy I'm seeing. He even points the profile out to me, and while it isn't my dude's profile, they're the same distance from me. The description is dead on, though, so I confront the boyfriend about it. No, it's not me. I'd never do that to you. He says, but the description is so close I can't help but believe the penpal. Something feels all wrong about this. He also physically kept me from leaving his apartment, which sent up all sorts of red flags. He also sat outside my apartment for a night and I only found out the next morning because he sent me a text about that. Creepy. In a hoe, I stay off the app for a few days and in the meantime, decide things need to end. Nothing feels right, so I call it off. He cries, there's crying, everything's tears and awfulness, and he's calling and texting rapid fire. I'm not allowed to break off a relationship, apparently. That's something we both have to agree to. No. I can end a relationship if I want to. Decide to log back onto the app and shut it down, though, because with him following me, I don't want another way for him to follow me. But oh look, a message from penpal. It's not your boyfriend. I asked him, and he said it's not him. Don't do anything stupid. I message him back and update him. Weirdly, that account doesn't message me back, another account does, identifying himself as Penpal who deleted the app, but made another profile. That's weird. Why is he yelling at me? Why is he so mad? What's happening here? Why is his profile suddenly showing at the same location as my now ex? Oh yeah, funny thing, these apps allow you to choose whether or not you show your distance to other profiles. Penpal Man and a bunch of the others who tried to solicit sex weren't showing distance before, but now suddenly they are. They're all in the same place too. Doesn't matter where I go, if it's work, my house, a friend's house, those profiles are all at the same place. Everything scarily clicked. New Penpal. A catfishing profile meant to get information out of me. Guys soliciting sex, or hitting on me, all catfishing profiles. They're all his. They're all him. This person I thought was an interesting friend? Nope, just a lie. Contacted the app admins about it and they confirmed. To date, 9 different profiles. He's been stalking me for the last 3 years now. My boyfriend was sleeping with his ex right in front of my face for months and I ignored the signs. The first thing that I noticed was that he all of a sudden stopped talking about her, went from complaining about her all the time to never even saying her name. Next, my toothbrush at his place disappeared, and the couple items I did have he put in a bag under the sink, covered by a towel. When I asked, he said he didn't want his daughter to get into it the weekends she was there. Same thing with the one pair of flip-flops I had there. They went missing one day, and after pressing him over and over he got them off of the back porch that no one even goes on, after saying repeatedly that he had no idea where they went. Then, he started to pick fights with me Saturday nights, 4 or 5 in a row. He would text me a whole bunch of times. If I didn't respond to the first text in 2 minutes he would just be mean, saying I'm ignoring him and not to bother talking to him the rest of the night cause I must be hanging out with someone else. Even with all the little things piling up I still thought he wouldn't do that to me. The day I accidentally caught them was the worst. We made dinner plans with another couple for that night, but around 4 PM he started texting me acting like a complete asshole. Said he was drunk and in a bad mood and depressed and just couldn't go out and not to come over because he would just be a jerk and he didn't want to do that to me. Well, I figured it'd be a good girlfriend and bring him dinner from the restaurant. I texted him 5 minimums before I left and said I was on my way, and he texted back and said he was in bed and not to come, but I said he'll just leave it in the fridge cause I already bought it and didn't want to waste it. When I drove up to his house his car was pulled all the way up the driveway like another car had been parked behind it, and I thought that was weird since I always had to pull his car in to park in the driveway because he would park at the bottom. When I got inside he was upstairs in his room, fully dressed. There were 2 cups on the nightstand. I decided the easiest way would be to catch him in a lie, so all I said was I saw someone pulling out of your driveway as I was pulling up. Who was that? The look on his face said it all. I started crying, begging him to tell me the truth. He said I was crazy and that his brother had just stopped by to drop some stuff off. Well, that was it. I knew he was lying for sure. I pulled up Snapchat and his brother had snapped from a baseball game 2 hours away. Obviously he was caught, so he came clean. Said he was still in love with her, even though she was horrible and I was so much better. He couldn't get over her and would never be able to, and he wanted to tell me for so long, and that he thought I really knew cause I'm so smart and I know him so well, blah blah blah. I tried to make it work, but a week later I drove by after he said I was annoying him all day and wanted to be alone, and her car was there. I knocked on the door and he answered, but couldn't really say much. We both knew she was upstairs. I yelled up that she was a slut and she came downstairs. She said had no idea we were together. I wasn't sure what to believe, so I just left. He called me a lot, begged me for forgiveness, said he never slept with her, they were just hanging out. I still miss him dearly, but I can't do that to myself. Being alone is better than being with someone who doesn't really love you. Edit. Thanks for the messages of support. This was pretty recent so it helps. My ex-husband used to keep an emergency $5 bill in his wallet, folded up and tucked into a side pocket. He openly told me he kept it there and reminded me it was there and often told me to just take it if I needed it. Over the few years we were together I used and replaced that $5 bill a few times, usually because I needed cash for food at work and didn't have time to stop or something like that. I never just looked through his wallet. My policy is that if we are at a point that I feel the need to look through your wallet/phone/email, then we are already in trouble. So, I had a doctor's appointment and I was running short on time. My doctor copay was $5 for an office visit and I didn't want to use my debit card, so on my way out the door I grabbed his wallet and took out the $5 bill, and out with the $5 bill came a small piece of paper with the name of a shady hookup website, a username, and a password. This was before phone apps. 2004-ish. Right there, just written out, right there. So I went back to my computer and typed in the website and looked up his account. I worked nights at the time, 6 PM to 6 AM, and his profile said he was available for whatever between the hours of 8 PM and 5 AM on the days I worked. His profile also had no picture, but it was probably because he's an idiot and didn't know how to use a freaking computer or memorize his cheater information. So I very kindly loaded a picture for him on his profile, and I know what you're thinking, because it took every ounce of self-control I had to not post a picture of a giant turd or something fun, but I didn't. I posted a nice, flattering picture of him. Later when I told him about it and he asked why I added a nice picture, I told him because I needed him to latch onto the next idiot and GTFO. I also went to Yahoo and typed in the username and password combo as an email address, just for funsies. He didn't know I had done that. He denied everything for hours. Told me it was a joke, his friends thought it was funny, whatever. I let him sweat and then actually pulled out printed versions of the email conversations associated with that shady website. And for the record, my ex was asleep when this happened, so I didn't wake him up while I looked it up. I was about 15 minutes late to my doctor appointment and my doctor freaked out at my blood pressure and wanted to put me on medication because it was so high. I told him with a straight face that I had literally just found out my husband was cheating on me just 15 minutes before, so he let it go and made me come back for a follow-up in a week. And I never put that $5 back because F him, but I did put his username/password back in his wallet because I'm thoughtful. Obligatory, not my spouse, but have a few great cheating stories. All my exes in my short adult life have cheated on me. I have caught all of them. First, in college, this girl I was seeing was still pretty close with her ex from HS and described him as a womanizer/cheater. They would hang out sometimes to catch up, grab drinks, whatever, but I never got good vibes from him. I expressed my feelings of discomfort, but didn't want to taint the relationship because of my bad feeling. 2 years later, I find her sleeping with him and has been for the 3 years we were together. Second, girl I met on Tinder, too busy to go out and meet new people, pretty solid chemistry, kinda hippie-ish but grounded. Started becoming distant. Posted on her Insta with her new man at a show I couldn't go to. Confronted her, said she wasn't looking for a relationship any longer, but was in one a week after we stopped being in one with this dude. Bought her very nice $$ seat for her fab bang for her birthday. I went instead. Third, probably hurt the worst. Ex from high school I broke up with due to college and distance. I really liked her. We rekindled our relationship a few years later, picked up where we left off. At a point I was going through a really dark time in my head and life and just loved having her around, but was sort of distant. A buddy of mine took her to a show for me, was in California for family, and lost her in the crowd as she went, and met some new people. Fast forward a month, she gets shit-faced with this guy she met at this show and starts sending me Snapchats of them having sex. Started playfully with her neck, coated in hikers, then escalated to no holds bar. She tried to make amends the next day after I blew up her phone that night. My buddy still feels like it's his fault we ended, though I've told him it's not. Fourth, Tinder #2, again, busy bee. Pretty decent time, met over her winter break for college. Punkish, rebellious hipster type. She goes back, and we talk every night. FaceTime, whatever. She brought up how she wanted to be my girlfriend and she'd be lucky to have me as a boyfriend. I'm hesitant because distant and my past, but sure. Plan on her coming back for spring break. She becomes sick and ends up having sex with a dude who gives her free weed. I found out because she posted on her Insta story about him taking a shot from between her boobs and making out with her. Confronted her about it and basically came down to reaction. Moral of the story, think before you post on social media. It'll come back to bite you. As I post on social media. Sorry, long story. Apologies. Someone asked me to add a TLDR. This is lengthy. Apologies. This happened years ago, but the ripples definitely continued for many years. I was an athlete in my 20s. I was fortunate to spend the decade from my 19th birthday until just shy of my 30th birthday playing basketball overseas. I would spend majority of the year overseas and come back to the States until the new season or possible a new country. It's a very cutthroat career to have, as I knew guys I'd play against have a replacement literally sitting in the stands till after the game, and then they would be let go. So I met my wife through my brother. I was flying back to the States. I lived in Texas at that time. He said come to Denver. So I instead flew and was going to visit my brother for a few weeks then head home. At that time I didn't have a girlfriend or a house and just had a room at my folks'. So I'm on a 12 hours flight and land in Denver and my phone starts going nuts with voicemails. This was flip phone era. My brother and his then girlfriend had an emergency with her mom, and they drove to New Mexico and his friend and he was going to pick me up and would take me to his place till he got back. And he was a girl, and I was done the minute I laid eyes on her and was blown away. Needless to say I fell for her. It helped she was tall and she was very sarcastic and fun to be around. Moving along many years later and getting married and having a kid later, I was in what I thought was the perfect life. We traveled, saw the world, enjoyed spending time together, and got along with each other's families. Sex life was great, never thought anything would come between us. My mother's side of the family all decided to move from California at the same time. They all wanted to leave California and lower their costs of living. So what seemed like overnight, I got grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, etc. My closest cousin is Donnie. He was married to his high school sweetheart. Soon after he arrives we hang out a bunch, and when I was in town I tried hanging out as much as time permitted. He liked going to bars and strip clubs. My wife and I would go hang out and have fun. She liked strip clubs, and like I said we had a great relationship. So in other words we were solid, and I've always been open. She had all my passwords and I didn't keep anything from her nor her from me. One night my cell rings. She answered and spends about 45 minutes talking on the phone. My daughter was 3 at the time and her and I were watching TV. After the phone call, she comes in like the Gestapo point asking if there was anything I needed to tell her. Clueless and flustered, she explains that a girl called my cell asking when I would be over because she was running late. That she didn't know I was married and that I need to do right by her and our soon-to-be child. How much of an asshole I was for cheating on my wife and getting another girl pregnant. Moving along she is yelling and freaking out. So I tell her to call the girl back and we will sort it out. After about 15 minutes of going back and forth on the phone, I told her to come to the house so I can prove it isn't me. After what felt like an eternity, the girl shows up. As my wife let her in, the girl sees me and just loses it, saying that's not Rusty, what is going on? After a long conversation and a lot of moonshine apple pie, we get the story. So my cousin apparently almost got caught by his wife and decided to ditch his phone, so he had a way of explaining to them why they couldn't get in touch at times. So he ditched his Nokia and said it was stolen and gave this girl my cell thinking she wouldn't call. Trust me, I questioned his thinking but it really happened. He also had been telling her that Rusty was his name, Rusty being my nickname. So after getting everything ironed out, Even though I'm happy it was over, my wife explained I had two choices. Either my cousin tells his wife or my wife will. So I have to make this guy-wrenching phone call to tell my cousin what happened. He loses it and just tells me give him some time to tell his wife and to not let my wife break the news first. If you've ever been married, asking something like that isn't an easy conversation, no matter how good the marriage is. Fast forward a few months, all seems right in the world. My wife calls me, she was having lunch at my folks with my mom. That girl called my folks' house, looking for us tea, and my father answered. My father is old-fashioned. He married his high school sweetheart and believes that once you're married that's it. So him listening to this call and my wife tells him this story about what happened. He then asks the girl to fill him in and then maybe he can help her sort this out. So she spills her guts to my dad, explaining how I was leaving my wife for her and our new baby, and that she needed to reach me because the car broke down and needed help. And the fact that his phone wasn't working, she decided to call phone numbers on the bill trying to get in touch with him. Luckily he had already heard the story and explains that I'm not my cousin. My wife wasn't happy that my cousin hadn't taken care of this. So now I'm having to explain to my wife that as far as I knew, that situation was solved and hadn't heard anything else from it. A few days later my dad calls me and says that girl showed up with the kid looking for my cousin. During the peaceful time my folks went on a cruise and asked my cousin to house sit. He had been bringing that girl over to my folks' house and they were playing house the 2 weeks my parents were gone. At this point my wife lost it with this and brought everything crashing down on my cousin's head. He ended up getting divorced from his wife, eventually from this girl as well. We ironed out our relationship and moved past it. The crazy part is, I decided to retire. I had some issues with my knee and it would require surgery and rehab. Teams usually pay for everything including the rehab. So I decided to have the surgery and then fly home and do rehab locally. Trying to be romantic and surprise my wife instead of letting her know I was flying in on a specific day. Got to the airport, got a taxi and drove home, not wanting to let my wife know, expecting martial bliss. Instead I walk into a master bedroom of some guy asleep next to my wife. Devastated I went into the closet, grabbed clothes, took pictures on my camera, woke my daughter up, and drove to my folks' house. The aftermath was pretty standard and painful. To this day she has never told me who he was or ever really explained why. Well, a truthful explanation matters. Now I'm remarried and things are good. But to this day I never thought anything like this would happen to me. Honestly I try not to dwell on it, but as with anything bad, it hits at the oddest times. Like catching up on TV shows and browsing Reddit and see this post. Sorry for the lengthy story, but I couldn't resist. Thank you so much for watching the whole video. Please leave a like and subscribe.